And we're going. Hey there, everybody. It's your boy Lycidas Heathcliffe once again for episode 3 of Catching Up with the Vampire with Lycidas Heathcliffe, which is me, ya boy.
I think this is a new name. I don't mean to jump in on your own podcast, but like I first met you as it's Catching Up with the Vampire. I actually met you as Steven the Vampire back in 2015. It's been a long time.
My real name is Ashley Steven, but this is just a character.
No, I get you. So what is the actual character? Fill me in, because this is intriguing. This is like, I was intrigued to come on and actually talk to you.
Yeah, it's a vampire character who writes poetry, because I write poetry. And
that's nice.
And I commission poetry too. So if anyone wants to commission me, I'm open for that. I'm also in progress of writing a book. I am connected with, I got in touch with a publishing company, and I'm actually going to almost get this book done when I get all my 35 poems sorted out.
So you're balancing a lot of stuff. You're doing what essentially I wanted to. I've called myself a writer for 15 years. I basically would write the outlines, but I would never dedicate time to actually write the scripts. And I have the same thing. I have so many books I'm working on, and to actually hear you're going to follow through, dude, that's awesome. Crushing it. So you have 35 plus commissions. You have a lot of people that, hearing that you love poetry, like it was one of the things I could never get into growing up. But the poetry slams, it sounds nerdy, but for people that don't know, I've never told this on my channel, so this is an exclusive for you. I loved poetry slams. I loved going and listening to poetry. I loved open mic nights, open word. So what draws you to poetry? I don't mean to like take over your show, but this is something that like, I didn't know anything about you when I first met you. So like, what draws you into poetry and book writing? Because I love writing.
Yes, no, it's fine. I mean, like, you can ask me as many questions as you want. Even though this is my show, it doesn't matter if you can ask me stuff. But how I got into it was because when I was in junior high, there's this book called Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul 2.
I did those chicken soup books. I'll be honest, my family had quite a few of them sitting around the coffee tables. I had read quite a few of the different versions, so I don't blame it. I actually remember the teen one.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. There's one for NASCAR and Christmas and all that. I'm pretty sure there's a chicken soup for the Tubby Emu soul somewhere.
There probably is. It's just a lot of telling you got to work harder, and it's a lot of bots. Huh.
And you gotta get that 2K game out later than usual.
Yeah, it's been a weird thing. So like when you actually, again, this is something that it just fascinates me when you actually write, because it's somebody that actually wants to write. What actually gets you to like follow through? Because like obviously with me, found out last year, even though I knew my entire life, basically slapping the label on it. Hey man, you're neurodivergent. So it's like, what actually gets you to follow through? Because it seems like I followed through on YouTube, like being on camera, but it was the actual writing I could never follow through. So do you have any like tips like for you as somebody that actually does write? Like how do you actually follow through and stay committed? Is it something that's just, it is your focus and passion that you love so much and it comes easy? Or do you find you have to like force yourself to write?
Well, I didn't mean to go out the subject and all that stuff, but like you were saying about how I go about it and all that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. So since then I've been interested in always doing it, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was that I was on and off about it because I didn't know how people were going to think, and I didn't want to like, abuse it and like use it too much or use it in wrong situations or do this or that with it. So I had like over here for like the longest time, and so I brought it back because there was this person I was like really, really close friends with, who I'm not going to get into that today, but I wrote them a poetry and I read it to them, and they said they really, really liked it, and that really inspired me. So I got back on. So after they told me that, I just started writing, and I have a few of them written down in an actual pen, and I have like the whole list of all of them. It's on my computer in a folder, and I have to make 35. I already got like 16 already made. That's on my on a website right now that I can link to you if you want to read my stuff. And I'm supposed to have 35 for the book, so I'm 16 deep going almost to 35.
So it's basically, for those that don't know me, a little bit about me on YouTube is Tubby Emu, the character. Like you have the vampire character. That's exactly what Tubby Emu was. I think what I found out last year going to therapy and basically getting reinforced to me was I essentially just grew up with a very shy father, very like, didn't really, it turned out to be absolutely fantastic, but it was like, I used YouTube as like, my father had a heart attack, was in the hospital. I needed to make money. And it got to that point like where you're doing now, where you're actually writing. Except for me, it was I just did the videos. I turned on the camera and just went. It's like what I did for like, and I connected with people. So what you just said, and I want your fans to know this, and hopefully my fans, if there's any out there, hopefully from Main Event and I on television, they remember. They come over, and what you just said is the most important thing. When I was on top on YouTube, I was called a money whore because even though I was putting in 14 to 16-hour days, I was working harder than anybody else. But the trouble was I did this for only my job. Everybody I was competing with was working 8 to 10-hour days and then coming home and trying to do YouTube. I had an unfair advantage. But it was that first person that I connected with on a live stream, and there's so many people on live streams back then I would connect with. And when you would hear their genuine stories of like they were going through something and you made their day. So to find that like when I quit YouTube, and for the last 4 years I've been door dashing. So I've constantly moving. I get to interact with people on a daily basis. I get to be good to people. It's like my mantra of just being a good human being. And you would not be surprised. For you, it sounds like your art is poetry because it's how you're able to connect with people. And for me, it's just genuinely being good to people. It's like you would be surprised at how many people like fast food places or just jobs that when customers come in to grab something, just giving them a simple, hey, thanks so much, I appreciate you. And they get so caught off guard by it. So the fact that like when I first met you and when I meet people, I have created this web of people that I will eventually work with. So just like when you're describing of you kind of kept it over here for poetry, I do the same thing. Kid Bandit's a great example of somebody that from the first time I met them at DPW, I went, I gotta work with them. And it's now been 2 years and I've yet to ever work with them because we're going through stuff, but you always want to do that. And to have that connection that you have, just to hear that of people that I have kept in my orbit. And for those that don't know, last year I went through the hardest thing in my life. I went through a breakup of losing the person I loved for 2 years. And then I had went through of, okay, let me reevaluate myself as a person. And I remember posting that post, the photo of us from 2015. And I'd love to dive into that story because that actually broke kayfabe, an exclusive thing that like behind the scenes that nobody knew that like, if you're a Mick Foley fan, it kind of wrecked it for me. But
he's my favorite.
So there's, I don't know if you remember actually speaking to him, and I'll catch back to that in a second. You can remind me, but the whole point of that was just that is your art. So it's like my mission when I come back, as I'm this is giving you the sneak clip, I'm coming back, and it's gonna be there's a show I'm gonna be launching with somebody that's very big in the community, and I have some basically of all the web of people I've been good to and work with, I want to come back and finally work with. And you were one of them from that photo of 2015 because you had shown up, and every time I met a fan in real life, it genuinely was like, man, this is awesome. Because just like a wrestler, when you amplify a character, that's all Tubby Emu was. It was a person that was dealing with, I found out after the fact, a herniated disc and sciatica. So I'm working 14 to 16-hour days, sitting at a computer, sitting in a hunched over posture, making my only medical issue worse every day, tapping my foot constantly, overeating, not realizing, dude, you just have to sit up straight. And it was like when I went to physical therapy and therapy. So to hear you actually just get out of your head because you hear somebody say, that helps me. I absolutely will go check out your art. Because I think when you find what you are good at and you capitalize on it, there's nothing better. So it's like you found what you genuinely wanted. You kind of kept it off to the side. You weren't sure about it. And then boom, you went for it. That's what Tubby Emu was. I needed to make money because my father was in the hospital, but I genuinely loved wrestling. And for those that don't know, I actually tried to do Call of Duty at first, but I couldn't get into machinima. I got lucky with WWE because the guy that was leaving gave me a contract. And every step of my career was these lucky avenues that when I got to do the post-mortem on it, it was always for just the people. As much as I can be thankful for money that I didn't manage properly, because it's like you're becoming famous from nowhere, and it's like all this reality stars, you don't understand it. But it was always the people for me. Like, I think that's the thing I miss the most, is having that art, like when you actually show that person the poetry and they get that reaction. And I've not had that for the last 5 or 6 years, because I've been like Steve from Blue's Clues. I just up and left. And so to have posted that picture, to have talked with you, and then I've been on my own journey the last 7 months to finally have you speak up to Kid Bandit, to ask to come on a podcast. And how I even saw that tweet, I don't even know. But instinctively, without fail, hey kid, listen, do me a favor. Somebody I met back in 2015. I don't know why I'm like this. I don't know why, like, I didn't ask for anything. I don't like pull strings. It was just genuinely like, it's the right thing to do. And so what I've found in the last 7 years is there's a reason I've connected with you, because you're just a good person who, and I'll talk about that Mick Foley thing, is at that event, I got pulled out of I got a once in a lifetime opportunity. Wrestle Crate was this subscription service that it was art, just like you're mentioning. It was, he wanted to connect to wrestling fans. He created this box. I got to work and do customer service, and then I got to go to that experience. I would not have been there if it wasn't for Wrestle Crate. And the only reason I was at Wrestle Crate was because I went, hey, is there anything I can do? I want to be around wrestling. Like, and he was like, you could run the customer service, so you could try to take over customer service. So I tried to take over that. And, you know, when you're doing customer service remote, it's kind of hard, but I got to sign people. And this is an exclusive as well. It sounds, I hope people don't hate me for this. I was responsible, if you cancel your subscription box, my big contributions to Wrestle Crate were, I got Joey Styles, who popped for me. When I actually called Joey Styles on the phone, he's like, and this is where you, just like your poetry, it to me is one of the coolest moments of my life, is, and it's up here, I'll grab it, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Right here. So this one from Joey, I called him up, and I would love to eventually talk to Joey's kid, if he actually would actually tell me the story, if it's true. Joey could have been bullshitting me, I don't know. Imagine Joey Styles from ECW kayfabe you and like rizzed you up 10 years ago. He says on the phone, wait, are you the teaming Tubby Emu? Like the YouTuber? My son watches you. My son loves your videos. Main event on Ion Television. When Joey Styles says main event on Ion Television to you on the phone, you're like, there's no fucking way. Like, holy shit. Like, you have how is Joey Styles? I'm just a kid from Wisconsin who needed to make money. And Joey Styles, because I just made the art. So I think what you'll find, and this is kind of me raising you up a little bit, you know, I haven't even read your art yet. I haven't even read your poetry because I don't care. I care. That's a weird way to say it, but it's like,
yeah,
you have a passion, so it doesn't matter whether I like it or not, because you're connecting with people, and the people you're connecting with care. And I think that's where we get in this trap of social media. And this is why I've always came off as annoying with a payoff gimmick that Tubby Emu had. Because finding out I am neurodivergent in WWE, my father, I found out like on a hospital bed, he would call me up and ask, hey, is that thing with Cena real this week? And he would ask me the dumbest questions, like, is my dad really one of those like people that like really thinks wrestling is real? Is it still real to me, damn it, guy? But then my dad breaks down and I've talked about it so much on my channel, but it's that the old match with Harley, or not Harley, the Regal dude versus Dusty Rhodes, the big champion. And my dad lays down the psychology. It's the authority figure, and he's using the referee, to protect himself, and he lays it out, and I'm like, oh my God. That was my dad's art. My dad saw past the crap and saw it for the actual art. Mm-hmm. And I became famous on YouTube, and I got to meet you and see Mick Foley. My dad loved Mick Foley. I did not even think to, because I'm so caught up in my own stuff and my own experiences, I didn't get an autograph from my dad. I didn't get videos from my dad. I basically missed a lot of opportunities because you're trying to do things you weren't meant to do. I wasn't meant to work at Wrestle Crate and support, but it was a cool opportunity I chased. And that opportunity led me to meet you. And just in a weird opportunity, and I think you were wearing this is a true story too, is you inspired me too, because I was always too ashamed to wear that kind of hat. It's 100%. It's the hat with the flaps. I think you were wearing the.
I have it up. It's over there. I actually still have it.
Yeah, so that hat, like, I was always too ashamed, and she's from my mom ends up giving it because I posted on social media. I think you were the inspiration for that. I asked my mom, and I think she ends up getting for me in 2017. I got it for a Christmas present because, like, I started talking about it. My mom was listening to me, and she went, "Oh," and that was from seeing you wear the hat in March of 2015, just randomly. And I don't know if it was that year or the next year my mom got it, but there's a picture of me on social media behind a green wall, I think, and then there I am wearing the hat. And it just came from, oh, he was wearing the hat. And I'm not trying to hijack the show again, but to finish up this story, Mick Foley, because I know you love Mick Foley. Do you remember who was at that booth in C2E2? Do you remember all the legends, the WWE superstars that were there besides Mick Foley, by chance?
Well, can I tell you something real quickly before I answer?
Yeah.
I actually met Mick Foley at C2E2 2022, I think it was.
Okay.
I actually met him, and he was a pretty cool guy. I mean, he's my favorite legend ever. I mean, next to Mr. Perfect, who I can't meet. But
why is Mick Foley your favorite? What if you could give, like, really quick, like a synopsis in like 3 sentences of, like, just what is Mick Foley to you?
He's hardcore, which that I love that. That title win on Raw makes me tear up. That like that, just like the energy that brings, just like the anything is possible. It doesn't matter how big or small or whatever you are. Like me, I have Asperger's syndrome. That doesn't bring me down from anything either.
I don't mean to cut you off on that. So that's basically what I'm finding. So I haven't actually ever got a formal diagnosis, but I did a series in college, and there was a video I did where I basically interviewed a bunch of different people with OCD, a bunch of different things. And one of my friends, Paul, had Asperger's, and I related to him so much driving around. And I went, And the only thing my doctor ever said, because I had never gotten diagnosed to that point, was, "I think you could have Asperger's." And then my therapist had kind of said the same thing. He's like, "We don't diagnose it anymore. We would call it probably on the spectrum, but like 100%." And then it's like, I've found in the last 7 months dashing, a lot of the people I pick up from, and they're like my favorite people to connect with, they're on the spectrum of some sort, and it's like, they're cool people. Like, absolutely fantastic. It's like I bond the best with, like, this. It's to find out self-admittedly, you said, like, you have Asperger's, and to find out, like, I may actually have it. It's like, there's a reason, like, it's easy to connect. It's like we just kind of like shut up and listen to each other's passion. So with Mick Foley being the favorite, I'll be honest, I never saw that moment live. So, like, I don't even remember it. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. Like, I remember watching the clips, but like the actual feeling you're describing, I couldn't even imagine just what that actually felt like to, like, have that as a memory.
Well, I didn't actually watch it live. I wasn't watching wrestling at that time yet.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. So when did you actually dive into then with the Mick Foley stuff? Because I think my favorite was always I like Cactus Jack. That personality was my favorite.
I started watching wrestling in 2009, but I really started getting to the old school. You came back in 2009, you said?
Yeah, right about 2009, because I left from about 2003 to 2009, 2010. So yeah, I was about the same time. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, so I got into the old stuff. Like I was into the old stuff before the network, but then when the network came out, then it just was like going all different directions, you know?
How much did you actually binge watch? Because this is something that we take for granted. Like, that network was so cool. Like, and the fact that we all got wrapped up in we need to cancel the network because Roman Reigns won. Bro, that network was so cool if you were a wrestling fan, like you said, to dive into history. Like, so you must have been like a kid in a candy shop, just being able to pick whatever you wanted. You didn't have to find DVDs. You didn't have to buy stuff. It was just there for you.
Well, the thing is that when it first came out, my parents were kind of like, because I still lived with my parents, but my parents back then when it came out was like, we don't know if you should do this, but I don't know what their mindset was, but they wouldn't let me buy it, and so we had to order WrestleMania 30 for that outrageous price on pay-per-view instead of just watching it for $9.99 on the network.
So you lived that. So when I was doing the videos going, guys, listen, even if you hate the network, the money's there. Your parents are actually like, Listen, no, we'll buy the pay-per-view, but we're not going to subscribe to this network. That's okay. So you live the other end, the side of it. Okay.
But I eventually did get the network, and
Okay.
and it was like amazing because then I watched all the old WWF stuff, the ECW stuff, the WCW stuff, and now I'm in love with ECW, WCW. I'm doing a universe mode in 2K24 of WCW versus ECW.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I fell in love with, so coming back, one of my buddies that runs, he's an assistant manager at Burger King, just mentioned wrestling when I was in there one day, and we instantly clicked. Not going to speculate for him because he gets mad when I mention the spectrum of autism. But we fell in love with just doing WWE like in basically a universe mode. We do exhibition, but we basically run out a pay-per-view schedule. And he's trying to bring back in WCW people from like the past, like he's whipping out like Terry Funk, WWE guys from the 80s or 90s. And I don't know if people remember me from my YouTube channel. I did not like Legends. Not that I don't like Legends, but in the game, I always looked at it as, why am I not pushing the new people just instead of doing the imagination like you're doing now? Why the heck do I need to do a universe mode to try to book the people on TV better than WWE's doing, instead of just going in and doing WCW is cool? So like, who is your like peak WCW ECW dudes then? Because like, I'll be honest, I did not watch tons of ECW, so it's like I'm trying to just now start to go back and watch. Like I watched the episode 1 of the true story of the fall and rise of WCW. So I'm just starting to go back and learn myself. So what was the things that could draw you in right away? Like if I go to ECW, what's like the one thing do you have something you recommend to people like right off the bat that makes you fall in love immediately? Like you said, the Mankind moment. Are there moments that come to mind for each show that go, that's why I'm a fan?
Yeah. First thing before I say that is that in my universe mode, I just take the roster that's in the game and I just split them by WCW, ECW. So I just take the roster and just split it. But
nice and easy. That's a great way to do it. Yeah.
But for recommendation for like the real product, Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka in those series of brutal matches that they had on TV and pay-per-view and even up to the last one they had at the One Night Stand pay-per-view, like that, like those are like the most brutal hardcore matches you'll ever watch.
I have not watched much Mike Awesome. I know the boys at DPW like him, but like I've not watched much Mike Awesome, so I'll definitely have to check out Mike Awesome. That's 100%.
Even WCW when he was that 70s guy.
What, he was that 70? Okay, Pulse would have to watch. His mom loves that 70s. So he was that 70s guy. What was his gimmick in WCW?
Well, in WCW when he came, he was just Mike Awesome. But then when the company was starting to be horrible in 2001,
yeah.
He became that 70s guy, Mike Awesome, and he drove a Partridge Family bus into the arena. And
was this when Ashton Kutcher show was on? Because this would make total sense why they would do that. Like I don't think so, but like my God, that would make total sense. That 70s guy with a Partridge car? Are those the ones with the paneling? I'm trying to picture the part.
No, it was a school bus that had that. It was a school. He drove a school bus into the arena, and he freaking took the Insane Clown Posse and freaking power bombed them on top of the bus, and one of them fell off and almost broke their head open.
I'm just learning about like the Insane Clown Posse's wrestling. Like I didn't realize my man had Juicy, whichever one it is. Does the Moon's Fault? Like I just listened to a podcast with Segura. I'm like, what? I did not realize how much Insane Clown Posse was into wrestling. I'm definitely gonna have to, off the top of it. Okay. See, this is why you connect people and have friends that like actually like stuff that you have an interest in, but I just never had time to watch. So it's like, what immediately to go into watch, because it's like you're connecting something that like I've got so much Insane Clown Posse stuff of learning that they've done wrestling to now to actually have a recommendation. So did more than one of them wrestle? Because I always thought like when he said in the interview only one of the guys did, right? The guy with the face paint and the
They both wrestled. They were a tag team.
I did not know they both wrestled. I thought it was just the one dude in the podcast. That didn't even make sense to me. Were they good? Did you like watching them back in the day?
I don't like their music, so I don't really like them really. So I didn't really care about them.
Oh my God. Yeah, the only thing that I knew about Insane Clown Posse was, and it's not talking ill about him, but it was the with the Hardy the show they put on Jeff Hardy was intoxicated at. That's the only thing I ever remember hearing about Insane Clown Posse wrestling. They held that show for the Juggalos or whatever, and Jeff Hardy went and started jumping on ladders by himself. Other than that, I don't even know who Insane Clown Posse is. Like, I've listened to some of the stuff, but okay, so WCW, you have those guys now, because I could go off on a tangent listening to you guys because I just want to go watch them now. That's how my mind works. I'm like immediately going, all right, Mike Awesome, Insane Clown Posse. Who but WCW? What was the thing that then drew you in?
Because when you really think about it, now tell me if you agree with what I'm about to say. Back in the Attitude Era, right? We all love the Attitude Era, right? It was the greatest era in WWE history ever. But if you wanted wrestling, like wrestling back then, WCW was the show to be at, because they were actually doing wrestling, while on WWF television, they were just like moment after moment after moment after moment after moment. There's no 5-star classic on Raw back then.
So basically, again, we're 20 years later doing the exact same thing, like in the rise and fall of the WCW documentary. And the only difference is, like, hearing Tony Khan talk about the differences in 5 years. It is just, I don't want to fight anymore, because it's just the coolest time to be a fan. Because, like you said, you're able to flip and back and forth between both of them. So it's like, I could imagine the WCW, the only ones I ever really watched was, I chose as a kid, I didn't flip much. I was pretty much Raw. The one show I did watch was Thursday Nitro, or Friday Nitro, Thursday or Friday Nitro, and UPN on SmackDown. Those I were whichever ones it would be. But it was Monday nights, I was pretty much always Raw. So I don't even remember flipping back and forth tons. I was the guy that was drawn to the reality show moments. So back in the day, you were the wrestling guy, I was the moments guy. I loved those moments, like the reality show drama. You can say what you want about Vince Russo and everything, but buying Brian Gerwitz's book, who just a fantastic guy. Listening, he's more than the Rock's writer, is how he layers in storylines back then, and to find that you actually preferred the wrestling. So do you like AEW now more because of the wrestling, or do you find yourself being drawn into the moments more now? Because WWE's got a lot of great moments and storylines now.
Well, I will say I have no bias. Like, when it came to back then between WCW and WWF, I didn't have a problem. I don't know if I'm going to get copyright stricken for saying WWF instead of E, but I'm not contracted under them. They can't sue me. But anyway, I like both companies, by the way. I don't want to say I hated the Attitude Era. I love the Attitude Era, and I also loved Nitro. They were both great. But nowadays, I don't even watch AEW that much. I catch up on YouTube, but that's as far as I go.
Isn't that crazy how, like, just the base statement of what you said, it's like, we both, back in the day with Attitude Era, I was never one of those guys that hated one of the others. I looked at stuff, unfortunately, like a moderate, looking at, like, I like both of them. I see the reasons they both exist. They both provide jobs. They offset each other thing. It's just like, for my job now, DoorDash, Uber Eats, and all the other ones. One allows you to, deliver. One requires a pin. One does this. Like, they all do a different thing in the market. So to find, like, 15, 20 years later, you actually prefer, you don't even watch the best wrestling, I think it just goes to show our interests change. And it's like, I wish we would stop fighting for that, because it's like what you just said is, I want to get away from the tribalism. Like, that's when I come back to this and I podcast and do YouTube, is just genuinely just respect and love it. Is there anything or anybody, to follow up on that would get you to watch the clips of AEW, or is anybody that you're kind of drawn to? Because I do not watch the full shows. I'll be honest with you. I've gotten so used to, with YouTube Premium, watching the clips and the highlights of AEW. Is there anybody on AEW that actually makes you care? Because I think now that MJF came back, I've been glued to watching MJF. Is there anybody in AEW that gets you to cross the line?
Well, the thing is that from the very beginning, a lot of my favorite guys that were in WWE jumped there, like
okay,
like Mox,
yeah,
and Brody Lee, and
recipes, yeah.
Who else?
Andrade, Samoa Joe.
He was all right. Joe Andrade, they were all right.
Bryan Danielson.
I liked him, but I wasn't like gonna buy a T-shirt from him. CM Punk being there was pretty cool, but then he came back to WWE, and he's now back in the game, so that's cool.
The way you just said that, do you look at that? Would you say, because this is how I genuinely judge wrestling now, buying a T-shirt? Do you look at it as like, is it cool enough that you'd buy a T-shirt for? And basically, what you just said, there's really nobody that you'd buy a T-shirt for. That's such a good way to say it, I think. Of like, AEW, I liked watching it, but there was nobody that I went, I gotta buy a T-shirt for. As silly as that sounds, in WWE, I bought 5 John Cena shirts. I don't know what that says about me. I'll just leave it there and let you continue. But I bought 5 John Cena shirts. So.
I like. I wanted to buy a Moxley shirt for the longest time, but I just haven't yet.
The Mox one with like the barbed wire, or was there one specifically you were trying to get, like that you saw that went, that's the one I would buy?
I think it, if I remember what it looks like, I think it has the spray painted Mox on the back, and it has something on the front, which I forget what it has on the front.
Orange one, from the original vest one. Was that when he had the back vest? It was like a Mox in orange. It had like the box out, like he put a sign. That one was sweet. Okay, I could see that.
I want to get a Mox shirt. I want to get that sometime. I have the Brody Lee shirt when he passed away. I have that one. What else? I have the CM Punk shirt when he returned to wrestling in AEW. I have that one. Are we just talking AEW or just in general?
No, even WWE, like it's just that question of like, who do you support enough to like actually go out where you buy your T-shirt? Because that says a lot about somebody that actually connects. That's what I've learned now, especially for me, is like, as cheesy as it is, like my only souvenir of getting flown out to WWE because of WWE games twice to WrestleMania in Dallas and then San Francisco or San Jose, whatever, the coolest experiences. My only thing was the fact that I bought Luge Mania something, and she owed me money, and she handed me a $5 bill. And I walked over to the table, and they were selling John Cena towels for $5. And then here's me buying a John Cena merch. So like the question of actually, because this is a big thing for fans, I think you can watch wrestling and like talent, but when it crosses over, as silly as it sounds, in your mind that you're willing to buy a T-shirt for that person, that goes to show you're connected with them. It's just, I don't like what people think about that, because I think a lot of people just look at T-shirts as, oh, it looks cool, I'm going to buy it. But from an actual fundamental level of somebody that invests time, like you said, that goes out of your way to watch the network or watch clips or something, the mock shirts I never bought, but his book I fell in love with. I don't know if you've listened to his book, but I bought it on Audible. It was absolutely fantastic listening to him talk. And I know Amanda Huber tweeted about it, but him talk about the differences in the sandwich and just how simple-minded this man is, and how like basic in life he is, just wants to do the stuff he loves and then leave him alone. And then you connect with him on such a deeper level as a person. And now it makes me want to go buy a mock shirt. God dang it. Okay, we're gonna have to look out for mock shirts on this one. If there are any recommendations if people are watching, which is your favorite mock shirt, maybe I'll actually go and buy a mock shirt, because that's exactly as I'm trying to ask you a question. I'm talking myself into, why don't I own a mock shirt? It's because I've been away from the fandom of wrestling. I've not been around fans and friends and just being around like you talking about it and reminding me, yeah, your dad got you into love of wrestling and you've been avoiding wrestling when your dad died. Just go back into the thing you love. So who actually have you bought T-shirts? Because I bought people that mocked me. Tony, Pizza Guy, they all mocked me for owning 2 core shirts. I had a Nexus shirt. I had 5 John Cena shirts. Who do you actually like right now buy? Like, who are the people that get you to buy right now?
Oh boy. Well,
or is it just design? Is it a cool design? Like if you support them, or is it just like they're my guys right now? There's a lot of cool people in WWE that have literally gotten like to the point of solving the problem of them not having main event stars. Like they literally have so many main event people now. So either your collection's really big, or
my collection is huge. I have so many wrestling shirts throughout the year. I want to tell you the most. I can't remember all of them right now, but I want to tell you.
Yeah, you're good.
But my very first wrestling shirt ever was the CM Punk Nexus shirt, and I loved that shirt. That's how I grew out of it.
And that I did not remember that. It's like, do you remember the Nexus coming out? Like, I genuinely just got targeted with this video from the algorithm yesterday. The Nexus, I did not remember that CM Punk was wrestling in a mask with Luke Gallows and Serena out there, with facing John Cena when Nexus debuted. And then CM Punk goes on to lead the new Nexus. Like, in a world 10 years later, saying that out loud is going, wait a minute. Like, and that's what the payoff was for me as a guy that went into storylines. Not to cut you off on that, is just that's how cool it was to the new Nexus thing of, I just saw this last night and we're talking about it. I've been having so much of this stuff happen. Is like, why that shirt then? Because like I remember when he took over the new Nexus, but the fact that he was involved and that I didn't even remember until yesterday that he was involved when they even debuted, that makes me think there's a conspiracy theory that he was like trying to get away from straight edge society. I don't know. What was that shirt? What made you do it? Was it his actions at the time? Like, I don't even remember him going into it, to be honest. I remember him wearing shirts.
Because I loved the Nexus, and then I loved CM Punk, and then he went into Nexus, and then he made a cool, awesome T-shirt when he joined, which was basically his shirt, but it's all yellow.
Yeah, it was sick. Yeah, I remember that one.
And then later on down the road, like a few years ago, they re-released the original Nexus shirt, which I never owned, and then I was able to buy it again, and so now I actually own the original Nexus shirt, which is awesome.
Yeah, when that one came out for resale, I wanted to buy it, and I feel like that's where it's been bad. Where it's like I look at fandom now as like my special interest of like I'll spend money on it if I'm into it, but it's like I've been so wrapped up into door dashing mind if I need to save money for gas and in case car stuff. But I want to buy stuff like this. So the fact that I missed that Nexus shirt and you got it, I'm a little bummed out, to be honest.
I also own the second Nexus shirt, the one that they made after the original one that has the shattered N on the front that has all the newspaper articles in it, and on the back says "We Are One." I also own that one.
That theme song, "We Are One," was hands down in the top. When I was in my YouTube career, that was a top 5 song. The 12 Stone, like I played that song so much. It was on my workout playlist. It was.
But when you call it a banger after banger after banger after banger.
He was another cool guy. Meeting Sheamus, he offered me food when I was 470 pounds. Like, hey, fella, you hungry? And he wasn't fat shaming. He was just genuinely like, he went to grab it. In my head, I didn't say it out loud because I'm like, I hold my stuff in when people make judgments because I've been big my whole life. And then he goes and shoves 3 pieces in his mouth like a chipmunk, like, so good, fella. You sure you don't want some? And I'm like, I thought he was mocking me at first for being fat. They're like, no, this is just Sheamus. So banger after banger. That dude, I wish all the best for that guy. He's so cool.
No, it's talking about, since we're talking about T-shirts. I have a Sheamus shirt coming in the mail right now that says "banger after banger" on the front, and it says Sheamus on the back. and I got a tank top recently that's an NWO tank top, and it says the following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order on it. and I also have another favorite suit. I found a new favorite in wrestling, and I kind of have a little wrestling crush on Kairi Sane, and so I got her T-shirt.
Okay, that's somebody that I get just as far as like, I mean, you said wrestling crush, like, yeah, it's just somebody that like honestly, I think Triple H, my man, I've said this we talk about writing books. Wrestling Isn't Wrestling Part 2 is the thing I wrote, which has essentially happened. I never actually wrote the book because it's there. So there's going to be like this 15-page thing that's going to go down in history of me laying out basically Triple H saying all this would happen. That him and Paul Heyman would end up on this mountaintop, that they created it all with UFC before any of it happened, that they basically built this layered in stuff. And Kyrie was the one, if you truly think about it, now that the leak story came out yesterday from Triple H and Rossi from Stardom, literally saying, Triple H was like, you're an artist. I want to fund you and do whatever you want. So by sending Kyrie as a goodwill artist back to let her go do her thing, Triple H is a genius. I'm not spreading any conspiracy theories on that. So to see you have like a favor from that was cool to see somebody bet on themselves. As cool as that was drama, everybody's like, why would you leave WWE? That Kyrie thing was so cool to see her just be like, I'm done. I'm going back home. And then to see her come back and get that shiny moment with what pay-per-view was it? It was in Saudi, right? It was such a cool moment.
Crown Jewel.
It's Crown Jewel. Yeah, it was such a cool moment. Like, that's like my favorite thing about wrestling now is you can just get invested in the person because, like TNA has shown, Dolph basically was overpaid in WWE for not getting asked to do much as like the jock TV character of like, he's past his prime, but he's doing this. And now I just watched TNA's main event, the 20th anniversary show. And I'm watching the 20th anniversary of TNA as Jordan Grace is in WWE, going, I now want to buy a t-shirt for somebody in TNA. Like, this is cool. I don't know who I want to buy a t-shirt for in TNA, but Dolph Ziggler is main eventing a TNA show with Aiden English and Tom Hannafan on commentary. And I never felt more WWE cinematic universe like Marvel in the world. And in my book, I wrote Triple H is going to build a Marvel cinematic universe. And here we are years later. I'm talking to you trying to figure out which t-shirts to buy. You're making me actually want to spend so much money. It's actually dangerous on podcasts because you're listening to people talk about this and go, I don't have that one in my collection. Meanwhile, you guys are all going to show me your collections, make me more jealous as I've been the super fan who doesn't put his money where his mouth is. So who else after that? I didn't mean to cut you off on that one. It's just, you're saying a lot of cool stuff that's resonating with me. It's like, it's fun to have these actual conversations where you just get to let loose. So continue.
Well, I got other wrestling shirts too, but if I can do a self plug, I have merch.
Yeah, that's you should always brother your own merch.
Yeah, I have merch for this character. I got merch from my other character, which I have this character, which is the vampire character, but then I have Crash Cloud Kicker, which is my other character, which if I were to get into wrestling, that would be him. And he's sort of like, fully ECW style kind of person. And it's all straight edge based because I'm straight edge, so got all that straight edge based on it. And
so I mean, I don't mean to inspire you here, but are you gonna? It sounds like, because also one of my books I wrote was the kind of before the Story of Heels came out, the show. I was gonna write a book exactly like that. I got into writing it. Do you think before you? Because I think for me, when I was bigger, this is my biggest struggle on YouTube was, I always knew I'd get to this point. I've said this thing is crazy to say at 210 pounds now when I got up to 500. My little butt, and that's why I know I probably have Asperger's. Like, I would say the statement as blank as it was, I could lose weight whenever I wanted. I could be a wrestler whenever I wanted. I could do all this stuff. And now I have friends that run wrestling companies. I have the opportunity. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't actually want to get in the wrestling ring. Maybe I'll announce. Maybe I'll do something, but I am not risking my life for a bump. I'll let the professionals handle that. But I did think about wanting to write like my own wrestling character book. Like if I could pick somebody's story arc. So have you ever thought to like, are you creating this character just for like a podcast or a show? Or are you secretly like writing a book of like this character's revival and like it's going to come out in like a series type thing? Because if you're a writer and that's your strength, is that something that like is in the works possibly? Like you're describing characters, like a little world involving your own characters.
Well, that's what Lycidas is, because can I tell you a little bit about my character?
Yeah, go for it. No, absolutely.
So I created this character because at first it was just another cosplay for me to do because I don't have very many. But then the ring took over again, and I was like, wait, I can do something with this. And so Lycidas. So instead of like writing poetry and it being like, oh, Stephen Clark poetry, it was like Lycidas Heathcliffe does poetry. And he's from this town called Pitport, Pennsylvania, which Transylvania, get it?
That's good. It's like a pen names. I didn't realize how many writers my entire life, like I'm just finding out like out the behind it. It's like everything TikTok's exposing. I didn't realize how many writers use pen names. So there's nothing wrong with that. Like I did not realize pen names was such a thing. So, and it's a cool callback. You can tell you're a wrestling fan because you're Transylvania, Pennsylvania. Easter egging. Okay, keep going.
And I'm trying, and when I'm like, not doing poetry, I'm writing like a fan fiction or original story with my Lycidas character where it's going to be called Operation Tidal Wave. And basically the story is about his girlfriend, Lizzie Darkstorm, who dies after fighting off a monster from trying to save their tap from Pitport from being destroyed. And I already got art of how she would look and all that stuff. And my character has a birth defect where he can't turn into a bat, so he uses a jetpack. And so the jetpack he uses, she took, and she flew out to this thing, and the monster killed her. And the story is basically about how my character is avenging her death, and the only way to take down this monster is with Operation Tidal Wave. So that's where the name comes from.
See, I pick up. I don't read some. I listen to a lot of Audible stuff of hearing actual artists' storylines where they build the worlds and stuff. Like it's cool to actually hear that. So it's like when you say you is this something that like your poetry's online? Is this something that you're actually writing like in a serious thing? Is it something you're working on? Is it something that you can actually see now? Or is it something that you're just like kind of working on, building up?
I'm kind of working on it. I haven't really touched it in a while because the poetry's been more of my focus. But I am working on it. I already wrote out the whole details and all that stuff. It's in a Word file on my computer, and I'm just like when I'm ready to do it, I'm just gonna be able to do it and have like all my details there and be able to rework it as much as I can. I even went as far as finding pictures on the internet of what the buildings would look like in Pittsburgh.
Do you have good? So do you have question for you on this? Do you have good callback on stuff like you said that you can set stuff aside and then come immediately back to it, even like a year or two later, and then like you're right there back in the moment of remembering where you are. So like you said, you have it set aside. Because I feel like for me, that's how it is for me. Anybody can say that it's just a bunch of projects that are laying in a scrapyard, like an ADHD or like a nerd or in a scrapyard of like you're not there. It's like no. The second I go back and pick it up, my brain, I'm in that world. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I just need to find the time to get there. So that's what you're sounding like you're there. It's like right now is you got poetry on the mind, and once you're there, that's what I need to do. Now it's my time to get all of it done. That's really cool to find out that you actually like know you have that strength.
Now you say that about me, like how I can leave it and come back to it. But when it comes to that philosophy for me, when it comes to watching like shows, I am a disaster. I started so many things and never finished them. I have so many shows to catch up on.
Wait, do you have to catch up on them, or were the shows not good enough to keep you intrigued?
No, I just gotta catch up on them because I like my job, 8-hour days, Monday through Friday. It's just like Voltron, for example. I love that show, but I was watching one day and then I just like stopped and then never went back to it. My Hero Academia. There's people saying that She-Ra's really good. There's there's other shows I'm on. I have all these DVDs up here that I have still yet to watch yet. I'm like Beyblade, Danny Phantom, Rocko's Modern Life, the original Voltron,
So Rocko's Modern Life. I don't mean to cut you off on that, but that was, oh my god, that's just going back and thinking about all those shows. Rocko's, Cat Dog. That was such a good generation. Rocko. That is one show I've genuinely tried to go find clips of and rewatch. So that's cool to hear you say that. I liked Rocko.
I love that show. Are you a fan of modern day cartoons like Gravity Falls, The Owl House, Big City Greens?
No, there was only I don't know if it was Gravity Falls or there was one that my buddy's kids watched that I watched the first 2 seasons. It might have been Gravity Falls, or I'd have to look at the plot lines, but there was one that on Hulu that I watched, was on TV that I watched. But other than that, no. That was in fact whatever. The only thing we get is what my nephew's on. So I can tell you a lot about Blippi though. Blippi's pretty cool. Coco Melon's a good thing.
Regular Show would be your jam. Because Regular Show is like it's like the show that you watch, you sit back and watch with your friends, and it's like the dude show. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. It's the show. Finding time, like you said. I mean, is like that's what I'm trying to do. Is like you're working just straight 8 versus like because I have the flexibility in my job. I end up working. It's a lot of sitting around, kind of like a union job, waiting for orders. But it's like 8 to 10, 12-hour jobs, and I'm still trying to find stuff. So it's like for me, I'm actually trying to go through and budget my time now of like, what do I care about the most? And it sounds like, especially for you, that you have so much you want to do, it just creates that like, I don't even know where to start. And I think that's where now I use my free time. And this is my recommendation to people as I come back to content to try to get people out of their own heads, is like genuinely immediately the first stuff I start to watch is like my buddy Brand, that I started going to his house. He started watching the Dark Sides of the Rings. I had never watched those. We started watching some of this stuff, and I was like asking him questions about Legends. We watched the New Jack one, and I learned so much about New Jack. And it's like you find the recommendations from people in your life that you can talk with and interact with. And then I've wanted to like start a book club and stuff. So it's like I'm in the same place you're at. There's so much I'm trying or want to watch because I've just put it all off. I've used the excuse of I don't have time, or I'd rather be doing something else. But for the most part, if I'm doing working out or yoga or something, I could have something in the background. I could be catching up with a show with a friend that like, hey man, we're gonna watch this show and let's catch up and do that. When you dive into a show, is there something that you look for? Because like you, it sounds like you have such a wide range. Because I don't even know where I would start on that. Is there like the absolute go-to for you? Because I found like for me during YouTube days, it was just The Office. I was learning with my anxiety of just sitting in a room of like controlling it. It was just reruns for me. It was I didn't want to get into new stuff, so it was The Office and The League on FX and maybe Family Guy. That's just like what I had on repeat. Do you find like if you don't dive into new stuff, do you watch repeats of anything, or do you just like just kind of let it sit and just dive straight into poetry and kind of let those sit?
I when it comes to shows, right? I like sometimes I always get the knack to go back to regular show because when I was in high school, that show was my jam. Like every time a new episode would come out, I would watch it, and then
Yeah.
and then Adventure Time was the show that came out like regular show and Adventure Time were like this. And the thing was that I don't know if I ever told this on podcast, so I'll say it now. I was there because I did a whole podcast on Adventure Time. Like that was my first podcast was Adventure Time guys. But I don't think I ever said this on podcast. But when it came out, I was not really into it, and I didn't really care for it really. And then but then when I graduated high school and I was in broadcasting college or broadcasting school, whatever you want to call it.
I'm jealous again because I wanted to go to Brown, but it was too expensive. So I talked myself out of it because the guy at Brown tried to sell me for a week and he made a stupid comment of, I'm just jealous about broadcasting school. He says, I need to wrap this up. Are you going to sign or not? And that's when I realized the school was like a Ponzi. It's like they were just trying to get you to sign for a $90,000 degree that was too overpriced in Minneapolis, but they would give you a free MacBook. So not to cut you off, but I'm jealous you also went to broadcasting school and learning so much about you right now. Of like, dang.
So when I was in broadcasting school, on one of my days off, I saw that Adventure Time was coming on. And I was like,
what is Adventure Time? You're saying that in my head's like I'm trying to picture it because like I can picture the advertisements for it, but what is actually like what is just a synopsis really quick of like it's
kind of like think of like I don't want to say Dungeons and Dragons, but like it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's funnier, better, and heck, Tom Kenny, the guy who voices SpongeBob, and the guy who voices Bender on Futurama, it's voices in this show, and
that's okay.
And I don't watch Futurama, by the way. I don't like adult animation shows like Family Guy and all that stuff. I don't like those kind of shows. But
I never watched Futurama.
But obviously, SpongeBob I love. Everyone, SpongeBob. Everyone loves SpongeBob.
We all watched it growing up. That's true.
Yeah, but no, I mean, Adventure Time was so good because it was kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but better. It was just like it's a kid and his dog going on adventures, and it's just like it goes in 500 different ways, and it all makes sense somehow, and it's like really cool.
Okay, now that you said the kid and the dog, that advertisements makes it because I was trying to picture it in my head because I'm like I know I've seen this show on all the streaming services 1,000 times scrolling past it, but I've never actually watched it. Yeah, okay, this synopsis makes absolute sense. That makes sense.
I would give it a try.
Is that out of everything? Because this is the kind of person I am when somebody recommends it. Out of everything we've talked about today, right? Like you said it yourself. Like right now you're focused on poetry, and there's so much you're trying to watch. Sometimes you try to go back to these shows. From Mike Awesome, if I put you on the spot of like calling back to everything we've talked about in this show, between Mike Awesome matches, between what is the first thing that you recommend that you bundle up and say, hey man, I know we had a great talk. The thing that matters most to me is this. Is it Adventure Time? Is it episode 1 of an Adventure Time? Is it that series of matches of Mike Awesome? Because every night I've been dedicating like a 30-minute block to checking out my friend's stuff of seeing I don't know how long Adventure Time is. I can't imagine it's too long. Which one would you say to go first?
Well, I mean, I want to ask you about something after I answer this. But
Go for it.
But God,
it's hard, right? See, this is the thing. Like when you have so much on your mind, and this is where I found like the last 5 years, I've just gotten too caught up. It's like because you want to do it all. But if you have one thing to be like, hey man, come back and talk to me because it's just a thing you got going on right now. Obviously, right?
No, because my love for cartoons and my love for wrestling, I haven't really thought about blending them together like that. So like when it comes to like the cartoons, it's either like I judge between what I want to watch between the cartoons, and then when it comes to wrestling, I judge what I want to watch between the wrestling. I don't go like, oh, Adventure Time over this. I don't really like blend them together that much, really.
No, I know. That's why it makes it like a hard thing when you have somebody that has limited time of like, because in my mind, this is what I had on my side of the fence. I have to figure out. It's like I can come to you for all your recommendations, and then on my side of the fence, I have to realize, okay, I can't just right now not go back to work and watch all three of those things. So I personally have to pick one, and it's also an unfair question to ask you because. But let's just, if you had to pick, Adventure Time, Mike Awesome Wrestling, any match from history, anything that could fit in a 30-minute window. What is even from maybe a character perspective, if you tie it into your own merchandise or your poetry of going, this is who I am, watch this, it represents me the best, or something that you can like talk to me for hours about. What is the thing that goes, that's the recommendation? I'm curious because like I've been trying to figure that out for myself, because my always go-to answer when people ask my favorite movie or show, for some reason I said Remember the Titans, the Denzel Washington movie. So it's like it was always an unfair question to ask when people did, but I'd come up with the base answer. For you, what would it be?
What can I go on? What can I go on for hours about?
It's such a loaded question. It really is, because we both could talk about stuff for a long time, because it's like when you have passions and things you want to talk about, but you also have to manage your time the best. Because like you said, I'm getting ready to go to this 8-hour job. I'm getting ready to have to deal with the fact that I can no longer set my own schedule, that I'm going to have to rely on other people, which I've loved my job. So I'm just going to be sad to not be doing it anymore. So it's like, I'm telling you right now, I feel like today, tomorrow, Monday or Tuesday, one of those days, there's a 30-minute block. What's the one show moment match that would just go, oh my God, you actually did watch that? Maybe that's a better way to phrase it. I feel like that's the one thing I started to buy. Like, man, you actually went out of your way to watch that? That's really sweet. Because I've started to learn for myself. My entire life, I hated country music. I'm the biggest country nerd in the world now. I loved country music. I loved 50 Cent and country music back in the day. So I didn't back in the day, but I love country music now. And then I found out that my family had we're on the founding council of one of the biggest country festivals in my area. And I didn't even know about it my entire life. Like, it's in my roots. So what's in your roots of like the one thing, like whether it's your secret go-to, like for me, it was always The Office. If I had to pick a TV show, you could bond with me over The Office, episode 1. We could talk about The Office, or The League on FX. What's the thing that boils it down?
Probably just cartoons and wrestling in general, because like I can go on for hours about both. And I also love hockey too, so I mean that too.
Whoa. So okay, see, this is when you find somebody and you start to be like, okay, now you're reaching out to my other interests. This is where it's like, hockey was the one thing that my entire life, the secret thing about me was, I now realizing anything about my time too, I'm very good at, but hockey was the one thing that, like, I don't want to call myself a prodigy and anything because it makes me sound so stupid. I was not a prodigy. It's just my joking way of phrasing it. I really loved hockey. I loved skating. And I played it from or when you were 5, 6, and 7 years old, like right before they started actually doing leagues. And my mom went, no, this is going to be too expensive. You can start playing in high school. And for anybody that's watching that knows hockey, you have to be in it from the time you're born to, like, if you're trying to be good at it, you got to like go in and stay in it. And that's like my biggest thing. So it's like, I started watching, my mom fell in love with the Wild. And then she actually went to games and never once took me. So it built that child resentment of like, oh, like hockey too, man. Why aren't you inviting me to hockey? She would take me to baseball or basketball because she knew I liked those. But hockey, I was like, I like hockey. I'm jealous. So it's like, finding out you like hockey too is like, are we talking like collegiate hockey, NHL? Who's your favorite team?
NHL, and I have many teams. I like the Blackhawks because I'm from Chicago, so obviously Blackhawks, the Penguins, the Flyers, the Wild, and
you just said okay. This is trippy. That you just said everybody. I became a fan of people from the video games. So the Jaromir Jagr Penguin days, the The Philadelphia Flyers, you just hit them all in the head. The Blackhawks were the three teams that were growing up, and for me, the other one I bandwagoned on for me were the St. Louis Blues. The Pierre Turgeon days from the video game, hearing Pierre Turgeon hitting one-timer dekes, that was probably my favorite game growing up. Was the NHL 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001 series. I played that series more than anything.
Can I show you something that I have that
Yeah.
I really like?
Yeah, go for it. Oh,
yeah, I got this jersey. I also got the jersey that they debuted with back in '93 when they became a team.
That's the other favorite, obviously. Mighty Ducks, one of my favorite movies of all time. Gordon, like you just, oh my God, the Ducks were so inspirational to me. That was probably the first team I fell in love with just because of the movies. Were the Mighty Ducks.
Well, I mean, I watched all the movies too, but the first movie was great. The second movie was okay, and the third movie kind of sucked. But then the series that they came out with like 2 years ago was like really good.
Yeah, I did not watch that one. And the funny thing about it, like all those teams that I mentioned that I actually watched and I maybe catch up with on ESPN, I never once catched up with the Ducks when they were in Anaheim or wherever they were. That was the funny thing. I'm not saying that out loud now. I'm realizing, like, I popped up seeing the merchandise, but I couldn't tell you who played on the team. That's kind of funny to me.
Yeah, like I started watching when Ryan Getzlaff was their captain, and then he retired like 2 years later after I started watching him.
Yeah, I don't even remember that name. Yeah, that's such a weird way to look at it. Like, I can't even. It's a pointless way to look at it, but it's like I genuinely can remember all the players from the teams I loved, and I think I was just a bandwagon for the Ducks logo. That Duck logo was so sweet, and the flying V was just the coolest thing. I always wanted to go in and get a flying V secretly in like a hockey rink. I wanted to go with friends and do it. Nobody ever did it with me. So that would be cool to recreate it for YouTube of going out there and flying V and around.
No, I know. Now I don't know if they're. No, the thing I wanted to ask you is I don't know if they're in the hockey, but it'd be pretty cool if they are. But can we talk about Kid Bandit for a minute? How cool they are. Can we like do like Kid Bandit appreciation for a little bit?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, that first moment, I don't mean to hijack that before you say anything, was that getting to meet them at the event. I'm a huge people person. It was that beforehand, and the true reason, and I don't want to get into talking about my ex or anything, but it was at the time, it was over anime. It was over somebody in my life that was watching anime and was getting made fun of for it. And they stood for liking what you like. And that to me is why I connected with Kid Bandit, because somebody in my life could relate to that character for something they were going through. And I told them that to their face. I said, the inspiration here is just so you know, I have somebody in my life right now that's ashamed of something they like. And that person went on to create a club at school. So that's my appreciation for Kid Bandit. Genuinely was as simple as it was. It had nothing to do with anything else. It was the love for anime and just embracing who you are as a person, not stereotypes, not gender, not anything that the internet could come up to talk about them with. It was the sole fact that they liked anime and that I had somebody in my life that was struggling, and that was the art to me. That was, I can be proud to show your story to somebody that's struggling. Now, that comes with a caveat of everything else that like the internet would talk about, and it's something that I've wanted to sit down with and talk about with Kid. But for me, it was always that moment. That was the appreciation of just knowing you don't know what it means. It felt like a proud parent moment when you're just able to like say, or just, I don't know what you do, like what you mean. And even saying that was, I don't even remember if I showed him at that point, but it was the message that resonated with me. And I don't know what it was for you that connected with Kid, but it was it was 100% that, because it was, for me, I had never watched tons of anime. The only anime I had ever, I'll be honest with you, ever got into was the one Pulse got me into. We watched from episode 70 to 90 something, and then he left me stranded because he thought I didn't like it. Hunter Hunter. Monster Hunter, or Hunter Hunter.
Monster Hunter or Hunter Hunter?
Hunter Hunter. The one with the logo with the X between, where that's like episodic,
Yeah,
like 45 minutes. Yeah, that one. That one we watched, and I actually really loved that one. Like, and then Pulse thought I hated it, so we stopped watching it. But he went on without me. He's like, "You keep watching yourself," and I didn't. That was my first lesson in fandom. Of I could have chose to keep watching that show, but my brain shut off because Pulse chose to watch it without me when I was living with him, and my brain went, "Okay, just don't watch it then." And I stopped watching a show I liked. So it's kind of like, I don't know. So that was why I connected with Kid. I don't know what you were meant to talk about, but that's why I, to this day, I know they're going through stuff, and I am biding my time waiting, because I said they were the person I wanted to have a podcast with, that I wanted to do an episode to actually sit down and talk through the entire journey. And that's just what I'm waiting for, because I'm a patient person. You got to figure out what you got going on, because at the time, Kid was funding themselves coming to events. Like, it was the coolest story. People don't know this, but like, when you're trying to make a name for yourself and you're willing to fund yourself because you believe in yourself so much, I don't know if they've told that story, or I don't know if I'm breaking rules or anything, but like, when you believe in yourself so much that you're like, if I have to pay for a ticket to get out to that show myself, I will, if you book me on the show. And that was it for me. I was like, Kid, I got you. So
if you want to know how I connected with them,
yeah.
So I'm on Twitter a lot, or X, whatever you want to call it, and I'm a wrestling fan. Like, I don't care if it's AEW, WWE, GCW, whatever, NWA. I don't really care. If I find what I'm seeing that I like, then if the wrestlers that are doing it are really good at what they're doing and they seem like really cool people, I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I was on Twitter and I saw, this wrestler called Kid Bandit, and I was like, who's Kid Bandit? And so I looked them up. Like, I looked them up on Twitter, and I was like scrolling for their feed to see what kind of like what kind of person they were. And they were a wrestler who also does like anime, who like cosplays like they cosplay like anime, watch anime. They're great. Like it's just like what it says on their Twitter feed. The protagonist of pro wrestling. That's exactly what Kid Bandit is. Kid Bandit, and you see, the thing is that Kid Bandit is standing up for like the biggest thing that we need right now in wrestling, and that's individuality held to the grind like this. We need people to understand that anyone can get into wrestling, or into just anything in general, and that it's okay to be you, and it's okay to like to be who you are, and like it, and like, for example, they're getting surgery, for who they want to be, and that's okay, and you could be that's fine, and wrestling is okay, that like you're okay to be into the wrestling community, to be that way. And it's just like, because and it's just like, I have friends who are also gay, I may not be personally gay, but I have friends who are, and I support them, because that's what they want to be and that's who they are. I had a friend who was gay who unfortunately passed away a year ago in October at 26 years old, but and it really sucked, but I always told them that I'm always going to be there for them, even though they had a girlfriend and all that stuff. But I was always going to be there for them because that's what a friend does. The thing, it's just like, the thing that really sucks though. This is not about Kid Bandit right here, but what really sucks though is that I hate people who, like, for example, like, let's just say that you told me one time that you really like eating bacon, and like for like 24 hours a day on a Tuesday for some random reason. I was like, okay, cool. And then and then, you know, I forget about it. We just talk and we just talk about other things. And then let's just say a year, 2 years go by, and I say like, oh, wouldn't it be really cool if I bought you all your bacon one day and you just ate it because I was a cool person like that? And then you go like, what are you doing? Why are you telling me that? You know, all that crying stuff. And then you don't talk to me anymore because I hurt your feelings about buying you bacon. Like that's the I hate that. That's like the that makes that's like the fakest person I can ever think of is when they say it's okay at one point, and then 2 years later down the road they're like, why do you do this? Why do you have to hurt my feelings that way? Just like
It doesn't have to be 2 years. It doesn't even have to be 2 years later. What you're describing, not to cut you off, is just people that like, and I can say this with you because you've self-admitted it's a sort of thing of having Asperger's, and is what I'm realizing too, the same thing. We listen to people, and for me, it's way more inside of like hearing their words, being able to call back to it. It's like one of the things I have with wrestling, call back and going back in history. But it's genuinely, they'll say stuff and they'll just say stuff, even though I say stuff, and they may not even mean it. And you go back to call back to it, and then they're like, that's weird. Why are you mentioning stuff like that? Those people I don't think are, oh my God, my phone's dying so fast at 5%. Is just what you're describing is why I love door dashing, is going in and just saying thank you to people. It's my favorite regulars and customers that they're also DoorDash customers who go out of their way in notes to put in detailed descriptions because they just order something and want their food. They want what they want because people suck at their jobs. Meanwhile, people like us are sitting there going, no, we're getting paid to do a job. You should do the job. Why are you sitting here screwing around? Why are you doing this? And you're getting judged and you're getting ostracized from friends and family. And you're like, but I'm doing it how it should be done or whatever. So everything you're describing is the biggest struggles of stuff. I want to come back to content for that exact reason. And Kid Bandit was exactly the protagonist of wrestling that drew it out of me. So I don't, now I feel bad because I don't have my card. It's in the car as I have to watch that go down. But that is exactly what you just described and how you felt that need to where listening to you, it's hard to even say those words. That is truly why I left YouTube 7 years ago to find myself, to go and learn proper posture, to learn how to sit, to breathe, to do all this stuff, because I was that kid that was abandoned by Steve from Blues Clues. As shitty of a joke as it is, it's true. I got to know Steve, and then one day he was gone, and then you find out afterwards it's a contract dispute. And the only reason your favorite shows like Hannah Montana got rebranded because at 3 seasons they can't pay him anymore. It's all this stuff that you grow to talk to people about, and then we've watched it disappear, or people stop talking to us and they make us out as the weird people. So it's me telling you, man, I hope to continue speak with you, to continue watching your poetry, to literally exactly what you said. Individuality, be who you are, and that's what I want to come back and shine a spotlight on my friends, their work, and their art. That's why I'm back. That's why I'm so glad to get to talk to you and set aside this time. So I don't know if this is going to die at any point, but if you want to finish that off, that's where my last words were. See if I have any sort of chord really quick. You keep talking. If I die off, I'm going to try to find a chord.